Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video, welcome back to the channel, and we're back here again with Peter Kaminski in Obsessive Car Detailing in Ferbane. So Peter, you offer paint correction and paint enhancement here. Can you tell us a bit about this and what's involved, and is it difficult to do? There's an awful lot of hype about it. So
well, basically what paint corrections is to me it is removing all the defects on the paint. Yeah, but the most important thing is the quality check.
Okay.
Which is polishing the paint and removing the compounds afterwards, because this is the biggest thing. If you polish a car and you don't remove your compounds, compounds will fill most of the defects.
Okay.
And then you have fake finish. In this case, what I did this morning, I done this little bit here, like you see. There's lots of different damages on the paint. I brought it back, like I would say roughly around 90%. Some of the defects you can't remove, but like.
And just in the case of this car here, Peter, how old is this car?
Well, this car is only a year old. It's 181 Golf GTD.
So it's a 1-year-old car.
Yeah. So
we'll have a look at the defects on just the bonnet here in this particular car, and you can run through us with the different types of defects and the best ways to go about removing them. Yep. We're having a look at the bonnet here, and you're going to show us the different type of defects under the light. So
the most common defects on each car are swirl marks,
and that's like these circular marks here.
Yeah.
I always used to think on a black car that these were normal when you seen it in the sun.
Well, in this case, you can see clearly that this car was buffed, or whatever you call it.
Yeah. That here is someone ran over the bonnet with a mop in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Then it's probably hard to recognize which are swirl marks from washing, but you know, the buffer trails in this case are the simplest to remove. Then the next level is the swirl marks. Then you have some deep marks like this one here.
Big scratch.
More there.
And here's some burr dropping, is it?
Burr drops, residue. This car was clay barred, and the clay bar even wouldn't shift it. So that means that the burr drop stain is in the paint.
It's etched in.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Another damage you have there, it's stone chips.
Yeah.
You see? Well, the car is only a year old, but like stone
on
chips.
Irish roads, stone chips are very common, unfortunately.
Also, bug residue is well bonded into
like
paint.
These lads here.
That means that they were sitting there for a good while. The only thing, in this case, I can't say that I can perform 100% paint correction. Because the damage in some cases has gone too far.
Yeah.
I'll show you what.
Right, so you have done a test here.
That's how it looks after.
Yeah. So we can see, you see the line there. That's quite a difference there. You can see, you know, the swirls are gone, and it's quite a big difference there.
There is difference now. There is good improvement, but you still see some of the marks are quite deep.
Yeah. The car comes in. How do you start? How do you go about correcting the paint and addressing the defects?
I start from good wash. That means I have to remove all traffic film from a car first.
Okay.
Then we have to consider contaminants that are not removable by just a wash, which is tar, iron-based contaminants. Then you might have other various things like sap tree. You might have
bird droppings or whatever. Yeah.
Well, there might be, in some cases, there might be something completely different than usual. So like you have to consider that as well. That you know, each job should be treated individually.
Okay.
You know, so I go through process of preparation, which is wash, tar removal, fallout removal, clay bar, and after that the paint should be spotless clean. Obviously there is more in that, but like someday we'll do a short about it.
Yeah, you mentioned the clay bar there. You know, on a lot of the forums and a lot of the videos you see guys. What does the clay bar actually do?
Clay bar, it's a final touch after all those previous steps that I mentioned just before, it removes anything that is above level of lacquer.
Okay. So anything that's sitting on the top.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you couldn't get rid of by previous steps.
Like you mentioned, tree sap or whatever.
Yeah. The clay bar will pick all those last bits. So
Okay.
after all that process, the paint should be perfectly spotless.
Okay, so we've washed it, we've removed all the fallout and road film and contaminants. Where do we go from there?
Now then after that you dry the car and you have it ready to go.
Okay. And what is the first step so in paint correction?
Now, then again, when you have car washed, prepped, you should look what you have actually then.
See what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Basically, there's obviously a method of measuring the thickness of what you're dealing with. How do you go about measuring it?
Now we have a little thing like this, which is called paint depth white.
Okay.
In general, factory paint has from 100 to 120, 140 microns. Micron is only 1,000
of a millimeter. After you cut it, then like how much have you taken off?
This is only a couple of microns from
okay.
6 microns in this case, but like in every spot you might have a little bit of different reading. But now what is important in case of doing this job, you have to consider how much safe margin is. How many microns the safe margin is. If you remove too much lacquer, and the lacquer might still be there, but if you remove too much, you're going too far and you're removing the UV barrier. Now, in this case, the lacquer is, the whole paint is 110 microns. Lacquer itself is about 40%, which means it's about
nearly half.
Nearly half. And to show this now, that was 110 there.
Yeah.
And with this, you can see what we have.
Well, okay.
160.
Yeah. So that's 40 microns thick.
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is your
very
lacquer.
thin. So like everybody's familiar with one of these pockets that you use for paperwork and stuff. So that's how thick your lacquer is, which is not a lot. We've talked about the defects, we've talked about how we have to, get everything off, and you've done your test panel here, or test patch, I suppose, to see how things are going to go. So, what's next?
Well, the next thing is, you know what you're dealing with. I said you have the defect assessed. Obviously, with those deep scratches, you have to be very careful, because if you try to remove them, you might land up at removing too much lacquer, and then the only way to fix it will be respraying.
Is the paint depth guide necessary then before you machine polish?
If you're doing it as a professional, you should have it. Basically, you should have it. But then at the end of the day, it's only 8. It's only 8. It's not going to tell you everything. It's not going to make the job for you. So extra care is always the thing that you should consider first before you actually start to do and just base your work on paint depth guide.
Okay.
And there's other way to check scratches, are they removable or... Now, to check whether scratches are removable, the easiest way, without any fancy tools or anything, is spray a bit of water on the scratches, on the damaged surface.
Okay.
And what water does in this case, it shows you whether the scratch is too deep or no.
Yeah, so it pretty much disappears under there, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it gives you idea that you can deal with it or you shouldn't. If scratch stays clearly visible at all the time and is simply deep scratch, then you know that you won't remove it by polishing. Another way to check is scratch too deep is just run your nail.
See, is your nail catching it?
Yeah, if it falls in, then it means that you won't get rid of it by machine polishing or even wet sanding or
whatever. Yeah. I think this is something that we could talk about for hours on end, with this. So, have you any advice that you can give our viewers before they start this venture?
Basically, the advice is don't be overconfident. Like I see that some guys, they start out their businesses today, tomorrow they offer full paint correction. To me, that doesn't go together. You need practice. You need, every single car that I dealt for last 8 years had different issue, different problems. So basically, to do it properly, as I mentioned before, quality check, that you actually know what you're doing after stages of polishing. At this moment, we're not gonna, just in this video, we're not gonna do any polishing, but we have planned more stuff.
In the next video,
we're gonna go through every single thing that someone who considers to start machine polishing,
never done it before. Yeah,
will get good advice.
Okay.
So
Okay,
basically, my advice is try to find your limits. Obviously, when you haven't done it before, you don't have a clue what the limits are. So basically,
would it be a good idea, say, for somebody that's interested in starting into this, maybe go to the scrapyard and get maybe a bonnet or a boot lid and practice on that?
this is the best advice actually.
Yeah.
Start on something that if you damage it,
Yeah, it's no big deal. Yeah.
That's how I started to do.
Okay, that sounds good. So in the next video, then we'll probably we'll go on to the next stage.
Yeah, we'll talk about machine polishers. We'll talk about pads, compounds,
which ones to use, etc.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, Peter, thanks for having us, and we'll see you again the next time.
Cheers.